to Overcomers TV on your favorite app or streaming platform. It's time to overcome.
I mean, I would have heard about UBCA, I don't know, quite a few years ago. I mean, as a teenager, I guess, I was familiar with the kind of group of schools in my church background, and UBCA would have been one of those. I went to a different school in Cincinnati, God's Bible School, and that was where I went to college in my 20s, and ended up meeting President Buckler before he was president of this institution. I think we met around, I don't know, 2006, somewhere in there, and had him to a revival meeting, or I recommended him as an evangelist for a revival meeting in our local church. And so we invited him down and had him for a meeting, and I got to know him a little bit then, and so the church really enjoyed his ministry and his family, and so had him back. That's actually his oldest son married the daughter of my former pastor when we were out there, so it was interesting how all that worked out. So he and I stayed in touch through the years, and I was working at an aerospace manufacturing facility in northern Kentucky. I'd been there for several years, and President Buckler called. He'd been president at that point for maybe 2 or 3 years here at the school, and he said, "Hey, I remember when you and I used to sit around and talk, and you were interested in, Christian higher education. Is that still something that you're interested in?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, there might be some places here at UBCA if you would give it some thought." And so, anyway, that was, I guess, took me from just first hearing about the school to my first actual kind of contact as, potentially coming on as an employee.
So talk a little bit about your role, your involvement as principal.
So when I came on as a teacher in the high school, and that was what I did the first couple years that I was here. I got involved in some of what was happening in the academy as far as we were pursuing accreditation. They'd pursued accreditation in the college. The academy was following suit. And so I was a part of the steering committee for trying to make sure that we could successfully apply and achieve accreditation. And so during that time, the principal who was here, who had hired me formally, he had resigned at the end of a school year, and so that kind of left that vacancy, and I just kind of ended up handling, I guess, some of the day-to-day responsibilities of the office, and then the business office of the institution, college and academy both, just kind of fielded the responsibilities that went along with the office as far as scheduling and purchasing and all those things that it takes to run a school. But when I kind of started filling that space in day-to-day, President Buckler talked to me, is this something that you can see yourself kind of pursuing or wanting to do more? And so I said, you point me at it, and I'll do the best I can to see it done. And so that was how I kind of came into the role. And so that first year was just kind of a scrambling to make things happen. And the following year, we had a little bit more understanding of what was supposed to go on in the office, and so more responsibility was kind of passed to me. We hired a new secretary, and so this year will be my third year in this position, and so we've had now the same secretary and office staff for a couple years, and so we're just kind of getting the ball really rolling. We were successful in our pursuit of accreditation. This past year, we were accredited by the American Association of Christian Schools, which we were very excited about. And I guess that's how I got here.
So how would you describe the vision or the mission or the heartbeat of Union Bible College and Academy?
Well, the mission we have stuck up on the walls, and we put it on our calendars and mailings, and everything that we produce. We want to make sure that it's out in front of people, but sometimes missions I've observed they can just kind of be relegated to that space on the wall or the space on the handbook or whatever it is. But we recite the mission before each staff meeting, both at the academy level and at the greater institutional level. And the reason for that just exercise is so that we can internalize it. And so I tell our teachers in the academy our mission is slightly different than that of the college in that we have a unique mission statement. It shares the final kind of line. But our mission in the academy is to provide a distinguished education in a Christ-like atmosphere. That's the guts or the heart right in the middle of the mission, to the end that we can produce servant leaders who change the world with the unchanging word. But that distinguished education in a Christ-like atmosphere that's us. That's our responsibility. This is what we have to keep in front of us at all times. And I usually use an illustration. It's two sides of a coin. We don't talk about how we can provide a distinguished education and then how we can provide a Christ-like atmosphere. Those things function together. The reason for education is not just so you can get a diploma at the end of your 13 years of primary and secondary education. It's not just so you can go on and do college work. It's not for any of these things. But the reason that we are educated, this is pursuing the image of God in man. We're creative beings that learn and fellowship and function and work together. And the way that we do that is we learn and we grow and we stimulate thought, and we're able to receive information from others and turn it around in our minds and feed it back to them. And all of that to the end of furthering the function of relationship or relational beings. And so education is not is academic, but it's not divorced from our spiritual reality, nor is our spiritual reality divorced from academics. If God had wanted us to simply lounge around doing only the things that felt pleasant, I guess we could maybe dismiss some academic disciplines or whatever, but that's not the way of things. The way of things is that we learn and we grow, just like our children. We don't want to see our children remain as toddlers. We don't want to see them remain as, just kids or adolescents, but rather we want to see them grow and mature and develop holistically, spiritually, and in their understanding the world around them. So that's what we're going for with our mission. That's what we're hoping to accomplish.
So talk about evangelism. How is the Lord using this ministry to help share the gospel?
So evangelism is unique in some ways in the academy compared to the college. So the college is it's a voluntary entity. You have students who are recruited or they hear about us or whatever it is, but there's some voluntary effort that brings them here. As a K through 12 school, it's not always a voluntary effort that brings you here. Usually your parents bring you here. And that's usually a result of being somewhere in our general area or our community. And so we have a rich connection with families, in area churches. Of course, in the Midwest, there are, you can hit a church, with a rock from just about any corner it seems like you hit. And so we have a great relationship with many local churches, and so they know about us. They know we're here. Their families have sent their kids, or they plan to send their kids, or they are sending their kids. But on the other side of that, we're here in the midst of an exploding community. We moved here 5 years ago, and we moved, and there was nothing but construction going on around us, and that hasn't stopped. Drive up and down the streets of Westfield, and you'll see areas that used to be corn getting plowed under, and there are condos going up, or there are housing developments going up, or there are commercial enterprises going up. So we're in the middle of a community that is aggressively expanding. And talking about evangelism, these are people who are looking for, they're looking for something other than what the public school system has to offer. We are here to kind of meet that need or answer that call. And not all of those families will come from backgrounds that we already have connections with, or they're not someone who has heard about us already, but rather they're someone who has seen some of our material on Facebook, or they know people from some place who had some connection to this school. Oh yeah, they do this big event in the fall where they have this big tent and lots of activities and food and all this stuff, or oh yeah, they do that annual Christmas program. We see lots of people coming in for an annual Christmas event, but connections that are being made in the community, and especially inroads into families with young people who may or may not have a relationship with God, and to bring them here and to place them here and to see it as not just some kind of an abstract, like, oh yes, we're a religious school, but rather to place them in the middle of a group of people who are passionate about distinguished education in a Christ-like atmosphere. The reality of that, that I feel like is kind of front lines evangelism.
Very good. Discipleship, making disciples, Great Commission. Talk about that.
Yes, that's kind of the rest of the story. We want to see people who we've not had relationships with before coming in order to effectively and appropriately evangelize. But on the other side of that, people who have no need of evangelism, in that they are in a right relationship with God. They are seeking to know what it is that He wants them to do with their life. That's something that is, again, incredibly convenient in a K through 12 situation. We have the little kids. My own children attend school here, and so my youngest daughter told me the other day, she's upstairs and we're talking before bed, and she's like, you know what? I think God wants me to be a dentist. And I was like, cool. I said, if God wants you to be a dentist, then I'm sure that you're going to be the absolute best dentist that you can be for Him. So she thought, she's like, or He might want me to be the tooth fairy. And I was like, hey, that's cool too. But you know what I took away from that conversation, I put her to bed and I went downstairs and I was just thinking about it. I'm glad that she's 6 years old thinking about, like, what does God want me to do with my life? Because not every 6-year-old is thinking about what God wants me to do with my life. And so take that over then to the high school students. I work more directly with high school students. And so the 16-year-old who's thinking, what might God want me to do with my life? And I think a lot of them at this point, I love those students, and maybe I can empathize with them a little bit. The high school kids, that they're kind of too cool for school a lot of times, and it's just a challenge to work with them, because in school setting it's kind of us versus them, teachers and students, and that's the way it'll always be. And I don't think they don't, because I didn't, and other people that I talked to, they didn't either. They don't know the burden that these staff members really carry for them. But to know in a chapel service, hearing 16, 17-year-old kids standing up and talking about, like, well, hey, I just wanted to share, I was having my devotions, and I feel like God showed me something that I need to work on, and so I want to do better at that, and they sit down. Just the fact, they didn't have their homework when I asked for it, earlier, and they may not be prepared for the quiz that we're going to take at the end of the period. But those realities that are working together to build a disciple of Christ, I wasn't thinking about those kinds of things until much later in my life. And so to be able to see students who are now in their teens kind of actively pursuing and thinking about those things, I think that's an example of discipleship in action. So this is where I guess we might be a little narrower than the college, in that the college, as colleges do, they pull young adults from all over the country, all over the world, to come and pursue their education. A fifth grader, that's living in Oklahoma may not have the opportunity to, come here as a student. The Academy does board students. We offer boarding services, but that's not until you're at least 16 years of age, and some other things that go along with that. But so just across the board, ways to be involved with Union Bible Academy. As you mentioned, we want support in in prayer. And sometimes we say that we live in an age where it's very, very easy to just type, thoughts and prayers send, and we kind of go on about our business. But really to jump on our Facebook page, jump on our website, look in the faces, I guess, of some of our teachers and our staff members, and we do covet thoughts and prayers, not the easy ones that you just type and post, but see us every once in a while and think about what it is that these kids are experiencing, where it is that they're headed. The older I get, the shorter blocks of time seem to go. And so, you jump on a website, and 2 years later, you jump on the same website, and it's a whole different group of faces. But those ones from a couple years ago, they're somewhere, they're doing something. And so our prayer is that they're doing something somewhere in accordance with God's plan and purpose for their lives. There are ways to give, to support financially. You can also do that through our through our Facebook page, through our website, and the avenues for giving are good. And that while you're there, you can kind of look at what it is that I'm giving toward. How can I connect with it a little bit? But then I guess the other one will be just share. And it doesn't matter if you're in Oklahoma, Oregon, Washington, California, whatever. I don't care where you are. But share something about us with someone, because it's a fairly small world out there. It's getting smaller and smaller with the use of technology. And I'm just amazed that even in our community, how many people I'll interact with and run into in various places. And they'll say, oh, what do you do? And, oh, I'm a teacher at a Christian school. Oh, really? Where's it at? Well, it's right over here on Union Street, Oh, yeah? How long's it been there? I'm like, well, since 1861, since pretty much before anything else in this area, it's been here. And people are like, oh, wow, and they're impressed, and it's impressive from a historical standpoint. But what I go away from those conversations sometimes, what am I doing where people, in my immediate community are not immediately aware of my presence? And so share what you see, what you hear about Union Bible College and Academy. Those are the best kinds of interactions anyway. I mean, we're all force-fed information 24/7 these days. And so to just kind of voluntarily share something out of a sincere interest is, I think, probably one of the best things or most effective things for kind of getting the word out that you can do.
Amen. Good stuff. So why do you do what you do?
How much time do we have? You got? I think about the things that move me, I guess. I'm not, generally speaking, a real demonstrative or kind of emotional guy. I can remember, I grew up in church circles, and I heard things, from pulpits like, oh, you can get enthusiastic at a basketball game, but you can't get, energized in church. And as a teenager, I would hear those kinds of messages, and I'd trying to do what I should be doing from time to time. And I'm sorry to say that I was in my 20s before it dawned on me that I'm not all that expressive at a basketball game. I just tend to be fairly reserved. But there are things that kind of stir me, I guess, and I've found over the course of my life that those things that stir me are the things that are the things that are real, are the things that smack of truth. I pursued distraction for so long as a young person and a young adult. And I was there when it all came crashing down. And so I was just talking to students in chapel about this week. But the things that matter, the things that are significant, the things that are real, they're not just real because we want them to be, or it makes us feel good, or it makes us feel better. But no, we are created beings in the image of an almighty, loving God, who didn't make us because he had any need. He wasn't lacking in any way, but rather out of creative expression, he invited creatures into relationship so that they, out of creative expression, could invite creatures into relationship, and so on and so forth. And it just keeps kind of building and growing and expanding that way. But it's antithetical to just kind of seeking what feels good for me right now, the distractions, because those are plenty, and they're they draw us away. And so why do I do what I do? I really want, especially young people. I could do that anywhere, and I do. I try to be involved in my local church, and I teach a class with 20 to 40-year-olds, but especially with young people. I just know how much, or I think about how much further along, how much more I wish I could have gained during a certain point in my life, and I just want to help. I just want to help them see that better than I did. I want to represent Christ in daily life to the students that I'm privileged to work with, and so that's what actuates me, what motivates me, what gets me going.
That's good. That's good. Final question: is there anything else the Lord put on your heart to share with us today?
The privilege to be able to be here and do what I'm doing is remarkable. President Buckler will ask sometimes in staff meetings. He'll he'll say, if there's somewhere else in the kingdom of God that you feel like you could be more effective, you should probably go there. But that means then, if you're here, that this is really where you feel like you're having the most impact, so to speak, where you are most aligned with God's plan and purpose for us. I don't know. I struggle day in and day out to what is it? People say, get the mind of God. But I'm glad that He's not trying to be hidden from me. He wants to show me who He is. He wants to show me how to be. And I think He wants me to help other people do the same thing. So I guess that's it.